Welcome one and welcome all, Grey Town here, and today the prey is going to be our next victim in the publisher slash developers cavalcade of bullshit because of what they've been doing in the industry of not giving us what we want, not giving us these wonderful games that were once seen in the past, and it's finding out what happens to them. Let's dig into it. So this week we're just going to focus on one publisher slash developer slash bullshit artist because that's what they do, that's what they're known for. It's going to be hopefully short and sweet and to the point. So these people, these cretins, have developed such a strong presence, and they have been considered the pioneers, one of the pioneers of the live service business model out there, and they're showing no signs of pumping the brakes anytime soon. So, I mean, they are just milking this by the mother teat for everything that it's worth in overtime. But before the dark times, and before the games as a service model in which they rely on heavily today, Darth Ubisoft once reigned supreme from the 80s all the way until the early 2000s with minimal nonsense. So what happened? Who knows? But we're going to find out today. Okay, so let's begin. Founded in 1986, a year before the Great Talon's birth, the titular European-based publisher and developer Ubisoft was responsible for many famous titles before instituting its seedy games as a service business frickin' model for a few years ago, which pretty much means every game of theirs needs to have an excessive amount of pre-order bonuses, DLC packs, season passes, and of course microtransactions to make sure they fill all the cracks, gaps, and holes. And including, not to mention, we can't forget about the fucking Totino's Pizza Rolls pre-order bonus. That's right, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, there was a fucking Totino's Pizza Rolls pre-order bonus because, you know, we had to just rush out and get Totino's because we couldn't miss out on that fucking skin. But no, they had to do this right and confuse the hell out of people to make them believe that they needed a frickin' spreadsheet to understand and conceive and comprehend the pre-order bonuses here in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and a lot of their games today. But we will not be focusing on that today. No, we're not going to be focusing on what this company does to milk every fucking breadcrumb out of our hard-earned dollars out of our pockets. No, today we will be focusing on 3 games in particular, and the first... Okay, folks, so the first game we'll be focusing on today will be the World War II squad-based first-person shooter franchise that Ubisoft had developed back in 2005, entitled Brothers in Arms: Road to Hill 30. It wasn't your typical run-of-the-mill, mindless World War II first-person shooter franchise that saturated the market back in those days either. No, it wasn't. You actually took control of one of 3 squads and issued prompts as their commanding officer, telling your team where to go, who to shoot, and so on and so forth. It was almost like an RTS or a real-time strategy type of game, but it had a twist. It actually was a first-person shooter beneath it all. And it was cover-based at that. It was a cover-based, tactical, squad-based shooter, and it was brilliant. I loved it. I loved this game so much, but it did not stop here. It started in 2005. My favorite in the series was not actually The Road to Hill 30, but the games that actually followed. These type of games, though, featured a type of camaraderie and brotherhood, if you would have it, such as a band of brothers type of feel, and it focused heavily on character development and plot as well. The second game in the series was called Brothers in Arms: Earned in Blood, and actually came out that same year in 2005. Both games were very well received, actually, too, and still sits with an 87 on Metacritic for Road to Hill 30. And Earned in Blood has an 84. Both solid scores with very, very few flashbacks or mixed reactions. But no, my favorite game in the series was the third game, launching in 2008, entitled Brothers in Arms: Hell's Highway, which was published by Ubisoft but developed by Gearbox, the fucking Borderlands people. Oh my goodness. So you could just immediately tell how crazy this game was. It had a heavy focus on the story. It honestly was amazing in every sense. The graphics too. This is the first game, and last game, unfortunately, on the 360, it came out on the PS3, but it actually showcased a lot of camaraderie, brotherhood. The graphics were even great for the time. A lot of and there was even a lot of different type of mechanics too in terms of like displaying like the camera when you went into cover. It was third person as opposed to first person, so you get a better depth of scope and scale, and it just was great. It had a lot of teamwork, a lot of coordinating the strategies and attack patterns so you can carry out and execute your plans and progress forward. rally your team, tell them where to go, tell them to use sniping position, use gunner position, use the turret position. It was great. It was all over the place, but it was phenomenal. And we unfortunately will never, hopefully we will see the likes of it again, but I don't think anytime soon, but because Ubisoft is on this whole live service kick. But as you can see here, it's just great. And it plays, even to this day, I've played it recently on the Xbox One via backwards compatibility, and it's just, and even has slow mode mechanics that the Sniper Elite series adapted, and it's just phenomenal. And the game actually still sits on Metacritic, 2 Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway with a, it's the lowest at 79 on Metacritic, but to me it's like a 99. No, I'm not. I mean, it's like a good 85 to me, maybe like almost close to 90. It's really a good game. I can't recommend it enough if you're into World War II first-person shooters and with a twist. However, after Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway took the country and world by storm, the series took a downward turn after that, releasing future titles only up until 2014 solely on mobile devices and cellular platforms. But in 2014, actually, in 2011, they announced Brothers in Arms, The Furious 4 it was called, announced in 2011, which was loosely inspired from the Quentin Tarantino's 2009 Inglourious Basterds movie. However, in 2015, it was then announced that the Furious 4 Brothers in Arms game was dead, and Battleborn killed it and gained its power. So Battleborn took it over, and we can see how well that turned out for them. Yeah, because Battleborn is, fucking dead as a doornail. However, since then, in 2018, there's been a glimmer of hope for a revival in the series of this beloved tactical first-person shooter series. Gearbox Software has been hard at work trying to revive the series properly with Ubisoft. It's freaking corporate masters over at Ubisoft. However, it remains to be seen if a reboot or a successor will ever see the light of day thanks to Ubisoft's new business practices. Unless, of course, they turn it into a live service business model like they do now with other titles under Ubisoft's frickin' belt like Rainbow Six Siege and Ghost Recon Wildlands. In which those games have honestly become shadows of their former selves and just littered with microtransactions and live services and, just all that nonsense that I'm not a fan of, if you can't tell that already. But, so moving along here, we're going to engage in our second game of Ubisoft's Forgotten List, which was actually one of my favorites in the Tom Clancy series. And because we have been speaking of the Tom Clancy games like Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon, now being shameless and deplorable, what in the ever-loving shit happened to Sam Fisher in the Splinter Cell series, huh? Come on, people. Come on, Ubishat. Launching in 2002 and being voiced by the iconic Michael frickin' Ironside, the man whose voice just sounds like it was born badass. This stealth action espionage tactician of a franchise went from being the elitist of elites, comparable to such spy games as the Metal Gear Solid series, to the bottom of the barrel of an embarrassment with their last entry in 2013, which featured a younger Sam Fisher and voiced by an unknown, as Michael Ironside could not reprise the role due to health issues at the time. So by him, unfortunately, having to step back due to personal health issues, Ubisoft said, fuck you, Michael, fuck you and your cancer, we're going to just do a game without you and make it subpar. And I just want to go on record for saying that I loved and played all the Splinter Cell games there was up until Blacklist. I did not play Blacklist. I played the shit out of the first game. I played the crap ton out of this game, Pandora Tomorrow, and it had a kick-ass story, and it was just great. It was beautiful, and I also played a buttload of the third game, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, which was really good. It came out at the end of the Xbox life cycle, but it still was great. It had a really good graphics because it was just in the middle of the transitional period too to the 360. And the game after that, Splinter Cell Double Agent, where he shaved his freaking head, got hooked up with the Cajun Patrick Stewart, and he just went to town as a double agent in Double Agent in 2008. Loved that game as well. But my favorite though, up to date had to be, and it's not by unpopular opinion, I know, and I'm sorry, was still and is to this day my favorite. Splinter Cell Conviction which came out in 2013. Which came out in 2010, I believe. I'm sorry. I don't think that it came out in 2013. 2013 was Blacklist. I apologize. Yes, I'm sorry. Splinter Cell Conviction came out in 2010 spring. But unfortunately, this was great. I just want to touch on Conviction being one of my favorites. Why is it one of my favorites? The Splinter Cell series, it is because it featured a play as you want style. You can be stealth, you can be action, do whatever the fuck you want, get away with it type shit. The whole, it's up to you. You can how you do it. You're not restricted by pure stealth as in the previous titles. And that got a lot of controversy. That got a lot of controversy because a lot of people, the traditional fans. I mean, I'm a traditional fan, but I like to mix it up every now and again with the action and whatnot, make it a little diverse. You can still have all the stealth you want. If you want to play a stealth way, you can play a stealth way. You want to play an action hero way, you can play an action hero way. You want to play a mix of both, you can play a mix of both. But the elitist fans out there were like, ooh, it's not pure stealth. I don't want any of it. But anyway, it was great. It had a great story. Started off amazing. Had a great finish. I thought it was great. Michael Ironside gave it his all. It was fantastic, phenomenal. One of my favorites. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. But after this and the unfortunate, the downfall of Blacklist after it came out in 2013, what the problem was there was that it was not meeting sales expectations. So the twats at Ubisoft put future games on hold until further notice. The CEO of Ubisoft stated in an interview at a recent E3 that future games in the series would be put on hold due to the poor sales of Blacklist. So, you take Michael Ironside, you give it a prequel type feel, and you just throw shit on the wheel wall and see what sticks. You're gonna have a bad time, unfortunately, in this case. But last year, in October of 2018, Ubisoft CEO still stated they have a potential future for the Splinter Cell series. However, they were fighting with resources at the time to find a room for the franchise because they were hemorrhaging money. Fighting for resources, huh? Oh, really? Oh, fucking really, Ubisoft? You gonna pull that freaking card? You're gonna pull out the broke card on us? When last year's reports during your fiscal quarter of the third quarter of 2018 reported that you get a solid performance with all the nonsense and bullshit you were freaking spewing out of your mouths, and the malarkey that the executives like this were trying to gain? Oh, I just want to kill you tonight. It is simply the malarkey and nonsense and shit spewing from the mouths of the executives like this that prevent us from gaining any type of traction on once appreciated and endearing games of the past, such as this. Who wouldn't want to see a sequel to Conviction, a true sequel to Conviction, because that's where the timeline left off at Conviction. So, I mean, you're just fighting for resources, fuck you, be quite simply. You self-righteous pricks. How about you take some of those precious resources from games tanking, like the fucking Crew, or what about that Steep game? Yeah, take some of the resources you're delving into those games and put them into a nice new Splinter Cell game, okay? Why don't you do that for once in your miserable freaking lives? And you know what, people? They might just do that, okay? They might just do a new Splinter Cell game, but you know what? They might turn it into they may just turn it into a Frankenstein monster of its former self and be set in an unnecessarily large, empty, open-world map with 12 different type of frickin' pre-order bonuses that can give you a migraine and potentially a frickin' stroke. And of course be littered with microtransactions, live services, and premium paid DLC seasons 1 through 9 out of the fucking gate, mate. And that's not something I think we should want to look forward to at all. Finally, the last game we'll be going to look at is once my personal favorite of mine back in the high school days, has long since been forgotten unless you count those insipid mobile games. Prince of Persia was originally started in 1989 as a simple side-scrolling platformer and thus since has evolved, becoming one of the best action platforming titles that I have ever experienced. The Sands of Time trilogy, starting in 2003 with Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, where you played as the prince in a 3D action-adventure setting and scope with a platforming twist, where you had what they called a dagger of time. Now, what allowed you to do with this, it allowed you to rewind the game for those inevitable fuck-up moments. Yes, those fuck-up moments that we all so know so well and love. But yes, I loved these games back in the day. They were really, really cool action platformers with a twist. You got the dagger of time, could rewind time, make the game, carve the game up into your own liking, how you see fit. Now, the game spawned 2 sequels, the first of which was entitled The Prince of Persia Warrior Within, which was released in 2004, and also featured a really darker tone than the first game in the trilogy. Warrior Within was actually the first Prince of Persia game to actually get net an M rating, a mature rating. And in that mature rating, it featured a whole bunch of different challenges. It actually was a very, very difficult game, actually brutal at some points. It featured some light puzzle solving and platforming. The core experience did stay the same, but in spite of the difficulty spikes. But it was rather enjoyable, and it was actually one of the first Prince of Persia games I actually really had like a good challenge with. They were always challenging, but in Warrior Within in particular really held my, it actually almost promoted a dare I say this, a Dark Souls-like combat challenge, because it was very tricky. And the platforming was, of course, as brutal as it always is. And of course, in 2005, 1 year later, on the last generation cycle of the Xbox and soon to be PlayStation 3, and of course PC as well, the Prince of Persia 2 Thrones was released. And the 2 Thrones, honestly, to this day, I still haven't finished it. I got close, but it came out at a weird time. It came out at a time at the end of the previous generation's console life, so I never got a chance to fully delve into it. I want to get back into it though one day. It was really cool. It featured there was like a dark prince versus a light prince that carried over from the Warrior Within. It was really a fun game. I played a little bit of it, and they had really cool combat, good posturing, and also very good platforming as well. You had that exceptional Prince of Persia style platforming that we all know and love that carried over into future Ubisoft games such as Assassin's Creed, but also at the same time, they featured chariot races, which was also carried over into eventually the Assassin's Creed games, but was really cool to see at the time in 2005 be carried out on screen. It was really awesome to do that, and you could race them as well. And following 2005, the successes of the trilogy. Now, all of these games were positively received really well enough to warrant sequels. They did sell well enough too. Right now, they all currently, with a relatively high aggregated score on Metacritic. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time alone sits with an 89 currently on Metacritic, with a user score of 88.6, which is really good. Warrior Within is at an 83, which is not too far behind. 8.5 user score. And the 2 Thrones follows with a little bump up with an 85 Metacritic score, with a little bit down with a user score of 8.0. These are still relatively great reviews. Now, fast forward 3 years later, in 2008, another entry in the Prince of Persia series was released, but it was considered a bit of an odd duck of the lot because it was a standalone title. It featured cel-shaded graphics and an artsy visual style that kind of wasn't really well received with traditional fans, including myself. I mean, I liked the game. I played through it. The platforming was on par. My only complaint, of course, was that it was considered to be the weakest in the combat aspect, because it went from brutally challenging almost to rival those type of from some FromSoft games, to being really very easy, where you couldn't even die in certain combat sequences. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think you can die in the game, period. I mean, there were very few combat sequences. The game was primarily platforming. I mean, it really just was a weird game. It focused heavily on platforming and story, which was fine. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Nolan North voiced the prince this time around. I could be mistaken. I don't think I am, though. But, yeah, I mean, the combat was okay. It dealt with, parrying blows, defensive blows, but you couldn't die. And every time you did go to die, the girl, I don't know if her name was Farah, I forget her name, but she would resurrect you, and you couldn't die. It was a game where you couldn't die. It was easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and that's where it kind of started going downhill for the series. But actually not with this game, because honestly, despite all of the weird response from the reception from the fans, Prince of Persia 2008 still bloody sits with an 82 score on Metacritic, with a critic score, but it sits with a 7.3. As you can see, the user score wasn't that well received. And finally, we move. This is where we end our journey of Prince of Persia. Lastly, in 2012, we see a semi-return to form with the series in The Forgotten Sands, which pitched you into the role of the Prince of Persia from the Sands of Time trilogy that takes place in between the first 2 games, in between Sands of Time and Warrior Within. Now, I rather enjoyed this entry, but it did not fare well with some critics and responses from the public. It was a really good game. Don't get me wrong, it's about 7 years old now, but it was a really good game. It had traditional platforming, the classic Prince of Persia style, everything. I really thought that they were going to make a continuity out of this and continue the series from here, but unfortunately I was sorely mistaken. Because as it seemed, Ubisoft, or Ubishat rather, had a lot other plans for this series. Yeah, it had tremendously amazing plans for the Prince of Persia series that extended far beyond the comprehension of us little pissants, of course. And what were those plans? You want to know what those plans were? Well, first off, let's start with the Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands only receiving a 75 score on, like, an aggregated score. Meaning that's good, that's still in the green, you're still in the green, but you're not in the green, if you know what I mean. Because the user score wasn't even that good, it didn't get a positive reception, the sales weren't that good, unfortunately. I love the game, I had no problem with it, but you know, in Ubisoft's AAA eyes and live services, they pretty much said that it's not a good business model game for them at the time, and unfortunately it goes to show you that with its low sales, which the movie oh yeah, there was a Prince of Persia movie, I totally forgot about that. Truly forgot about this crap. There was a 2010 movie adaptation of Prince of Persia starring Jake Gyllenhaal, hopefully I pronounced that name right, but yeah, and it was bad. It wasn't that good. I mean, it was passable at best. I'd say it was mediocre, but it let's just say that that it kind of fucking tanked, in so many words. But to continue the laundry list of reasons Ubisoft executives are giving, they're saying people are going to get franchise fatigue. Oh, franchise fatigue, yeah, okay. Yeah, because the fucking unnecessary grind in Assassin's Creed Odyssey wasn't enough. The unnecessary grind that you had to keep grinding and grinding, even after you freaking purchased an exuberant amount of permanent XP booster packs, and even on then you still needed to grind, and it made all the JRPGs in the world look like child's play at best, because you had to grind for the levels and the level requirements in order to progress. No, that's not fatigue at all. That's not fatigue, not at all. You know what fatigue is? No, what's really fucking sad, people, is Anthem. Grinding in Anthem and not getting anything for your just services of the game. Spending all the hard-earned hours in the game and just, in the end, just staring soullessly into a dumpster fire in which the game is from start to finish. However, the creator of the original Prince of Persia series, the trilogy, does say they have interest in bringing the series back. Of course, Ubisoft says it is on pause. Why? Because of the aforementioned reasons, in addition to them being simple, and they're just complete absolute fucking twats, people. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Okay, so I know it was a long one today, I'm sorry, but I really have grown to despise Ubisoft, as you can already tell, almost as much as EA. So to wrap up this episode here, I just want to go on record saying that we should all be aware of the central consistent theme here in all of my videos thus far, and likely moving forward as we progress into the final half of this series. Now, what does that mean? That theme is so long as publishers out there, these AAA publishers, can find easy ways to cut corners and take the quick and easy way out and cut and carve and grind up all the freaking ways of their games that were once beloved games that are nowhere to be seen, and to make them into this stupid, silly little live service model, out there. It's just keeping the same, which pretty much means just keeping the same game year after fucking year and just changing one thing or a half a thing and just, you're just staring, like I said, you're staring soullessly into this game. You don't know whether you're having fun with it. Look at the Division 2. You don't know whether you're having fun with it or not. You're just saying, you don't know what's going on in it. Sure, you might be having a teeny bit of fun, but you have no idea. I've talked to people, my friend, people on Twitter. I've talked to people and conversed with you wonderful people out there who's saying that you're getting robbed blind because you're like, yeah, I guess I enjoyed the Division 2, but I can't tell you a damn thing about the story. That's not fun. That's just a way to kill time. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry, guys and girls. I'm a story guy, so I'm a very heavy narrative. I love my gameplay with story. I love like that peanut butter and jelly feeling, that PB&J married together. So if you can't have a good story in a game, or at least have a coherent story, people were saying that the story isn't even fucking coherent. So I don't know. Anyway, not to stray off topic too much, but point here being is that with those type of games releasing year after year, with premium season passes, DLCs, crazy pre-order bonuses, microtransactions up the ass, being monetized to death, you know, it's just then popping out a sequel every year, it for them is so much more convenient than doing something the right way, which is doing something creative and challenging and diverse and, dare I say, you know, intuitive even. It is an industry that is supposed to revolve around pieces of interactive art. So finally, I just want to ask you what your thoughts are this video so far, this video series. Just drop your thoughts in the comments below. Please let me know what you think about it, and let me know about your feelings about being robbed blind by some of these games that once held such meaning and presence by the companies out there like Ubisoft, Activision, EA, Take-Two Interactive, and more as we progress. So next week, please tune in because we have a very special week when I get back from vacation. I'm going to be working hard on putting together 2 out of the big 3 publishers out there and manufacturers of consoles. So not to give it away too much, a little sneak preview. Next week we're going to deal with, oh, well, you'll see. It'll be a little surprise. I don't want to give it away. Or maybe I do. I don't know. Next week, we're going to do Nintendo and Microsoft next week, and the following week, we're going to do Sony. So, big 3 right there. So, with that being said, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you like it even more. So, like I said, you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.